Hello, and welcome to the Nevada Public Library's Global Explorers program. Today we're going to be looking at one of the United States' most famous landmarks, the Grand Canyon. And we'll start with a reading of the children's book, Grand Canyon, by Jason Chin. Grand Canyon by Jason Chin. Grand Canyon is one of the largest canyons in the world. It is 277 miles long, as much as 18 miles wide, and more than a mile deep, but it's much more than just a big hole in the ground. It's home to an astonishing variety of plants and animals. The canyon is much hotter and drier at the bottom than at the top. Because of this, different groups of plants and animals, or ecological communities, are found at different elevations in the canyon. The hottest part of the canyon is at the very bottom, a 1,000-foot deep chasm called the Inner Gorge. The Inner Gorge may be the hottest part of the canyon, but there are oases in this desert. Creeks bring life-giving water into the gorge, and a wide variety of species live along their banks, including frogs, dragonflies, mule deer, and the endangered southwestern willow flycatcher. Many of these creatures are permanent residents that rely on running water for survival, while others are visitors, drawn here by their thirst. Eventually, every creek in the canyon flows into the largest stream of all, the Colorado River. The Colorado runs the entire length of Grand Canyon, continually washing sediment away and slowly deepening its channel. It's been cutting into the land for around 5 million years, slicing through layer after layer of rock. Today, it is cutting into the Vishnu Basement rocks. These rocks are part of the continental basement, the bottommost layer of rock on the continent. The basement rocks are the oldest in the canyon, as much as 1.84 billion years old. Many younger rock layers are stacked on top of them. If you hike out of the canyon, you'll pass younger and younger layers as you climb, as if walking up through time. Above the basement layer, you'll reach the Grand Canyon supergroup. Here you may find ripple marks preserved in the stone. Clues like these tell us what this place was like when the rock formed. They are like windows to the past. This is Grand Canyon, 1.2 billion years ago, when the only living things on Earth were microbes, such as algae and bacteria. Although they were too small to see, these primitive organisms filled the oceans and were some of the earliest life forms on the planet. The mud from this tidal flat eventually transformed into a layer of solid rock, and these ripple marks were preserved in the process. They are now part of the Grand Canyon supergroup. After climbing out of the Inner Gorge, you'll find yourself on a broad, sun-baked slope. The plants and animals here are well adapted for life with little water. Black-throated sparrows can go for long periods without taking a drink. Many creatures sleep during the heat of the day. Pocket mice forage at night and are preyed on by owls and rattlesnakes, who are adapted for hunting in the dark. These animals are living on the rock layer called the Bright Angel Shale, which formed more than 200 million years after the Grand Canyon supergroup. Tribolite fossils in the rocks tell us that this spot once lay beneath the sea. This is Grand Canyon, 515 million years ago. By this time in Earth's history, many multicellular plants and animals had evolved. Soft-bodied jellyfish floated above clam-like brachiopods and tiny hyolites, some of the first creatures on Earth with shells. Trilobites, the first animals known to have had eyes, roamed the seafloor. Around them, worm-like creatures burrowed in the sediment that eventually transformed into the Bright Angel Shale. Towering over the Bright Angel Shale is a massive cliff called the Red Wall Limestone. The Red Wall has many inaccessible caves that provide nesting spots for one of the rarest birds in the world, the California condor. With a 9-foot wingspan and weighing as much as 23 pounds, the condor is the largest land bird in North America. Condors are vultures, and during the Ice Age, they fed on the carcasses of megabeasts like giant ground sloths. Since then, their population has declined due to changes in climate and human activity, and now they are close to extinction. Above the Red Wall Cliff is a slope of rust-red rock. The climate here is not as hot and dry as below, and pinyon pines and Utah junipers are common. Many creatures such as squirrels, chipmunks, and wood rats eat their seeds. These small rodents are preyed on by gopher snakes and coyotes. At the top of the slope is the rock layer called the Hermit Formation. Fossils in the Hermit tell us that long ago, this spot was home to huge dragonflies with 8-inch wingspans. This is Grand Canyon 280 million years ago. By this time, life was flourishing on land and trees. Ferns, fish, amphibians, and reptiles had evolved. The sea had retreated from the region and rivers flowed across the landscape. Seed ferns and conifers grew along their banks, and amphibians left their tracks in the mud that eventually transformed into the Hermit Formation. Above the red slopes of the Hermit are pale 350-foot cliffs. Bighorn sheep easily navigate their narrow ledges with specially adapted hooves. In the fall mating season, males compete for dominance by smashing into each other with their battering ram horns. These cliffs have been carved from the Coquino sandstone. Fossil footprints in the rock tell us on this spot 275 million years ago, an earthly reptile walked across huge windswept dunes. With little water, life here would have been difficult, but the desert wasn't entirely barren. Among the other species that called it home were scorpions, millipede, and spiders. As the desert wind whipped across the landscape, sand piled up in thin layers. Today, those layers are preserved in the Coconino sandstone as thin, angled surfaces called crossbeds. As you approach the rim of the canyon, the climate becomes cooler and more moist. Vegetation on the sloping Toroweap Formation is more dense than below. Before exiting the canyon, however, there is one more layer to scale, the Kaibab Formation. The Kaibab's limestone cliffs are full of marine fossils that tell us about life here 270 million years ago, when the ocean again covered the land. Fossils in the Kaibab Formation tell us of a complex ecosystem. The seafloor was home to sea lilies and bryozoans, sponges and coral. Trilobites and brachiopods lived alongside them, while nautiloids and as many as 40 species of shark patrolled the water above them. Many of these creatures, such as coral and brachiopods, had hard shells. When they died, their shells piled up on the seafloor and eventually transformed into the limestone of the Kaibab Formation. If you ascend from the Colorado River to the south rim of Grand Canyon, you will have climbed nearly 5,000 feet and passed through 3 distinct habitats. Above the rim, you'll find one more. The Ponderosa Pine Forest is home to the tassel-eared squirrels, deer, and elk. Bobcats, coyotes, and hawks hunt here, as well as the top predators in the canyon, mountain lions. Because of its great size and depth, Grand Canyon has a wide range of climates and habitats, and species that call the canyon home today survive on ancient rocks that tell us about life here long before there was a canyon. It's taken millions of years of weathering and erosion to expose these rocks and shape this breathtaking landscape, and these processes continue to this day, relentlessly excavating the grandest canyon on Earth. And now we move on to our 5 facts section, giving you some bits of information you might not know about the Grand Canyon. Fact number 1. John Wesley Powell, a Civil War veteran turned geological surveyor, coined the name Grand Canyon. His expedition in 1869 down the Colorado River took him through the canyon, and his use of the name Grand Canyon has been used ever since. Number 2. The Grand Canyon is considered one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. Others of these great sights include the Great Barrier Reef, the Northern Lights, and Mount Everest. Fact number 3. The Grand Canyon is the only national park that has its own school district. The town of Grand Canyon Village was originally set up to accommodate tourists, but has since grown to a self-functioning settlement. Fact number 4. The village of Supai is located in the Grand Canyon. It has a population of 208 members of the Havasupai Native American tribe and is considered the most remote settlement in the continental 48 states. And finally, a plane crash above the Grand Canyon in 1956 was a major factor in the formation of the Federal Aviation Administration. 2 planes that took off from Los Angeles who were headed to Kansas City and Chicago both decided to detour so passengers could get a look at the Grand Canyon. After the collision, the FAA was formed with the authority to force pilots to stick to their assigned air route. Next, we move on to our crafts section, where today we'll be making one of the most recognizable animals of the Grand Canyon, the California condor. And step 1 is simple. We'll simply take our paper plate and cut it in half, just straight down the middle. All right. And next, the condor has black feathers, so once you cut your plate in half, you'll want to color it black here, as I have. And then we're going to fold it into a cone shape, like so. And then attach the backside here either with glue or tape, or I'm going to use a stapler here. And I'm just going to staple that together. And this is going to be the body of our condor. All right, and next we're going to make the wings. So with the other half of the plate, you're going to trace the wings from the edges, and you'll want to get something like this to trace the edges of your wings, which will be the top corners here. So let's cut them out. All right, and a condor's wings are also black, so we'll color them in here. All right, once you've got the wings colored, we can go ahead and attach them to the body here. So I'll grab the glue, and we're just going to glue them on here. Put some on the end here and attach it to the back to where the wings stick out. Need to give it probably a little bit of time to dry here. So go ahead and get both of them on. And you can kind of see the body and wings taking shape here. And we'll just hold it here for a few moments to let the glue dry. All right, and next we're going to create the head. So take the remaining piece of your paper plate, and we're going to cut and kind of follow the line of the wings, but we're going to come to where they connect, to where this part here comes to a point. So we're just going to cut like so. Making a triangle here. And so the point end down here is going to be our beak. And so color the tip of the beak kind of dark. And then we'll give it eyes here. And then the main part of the condor's head is actually red. So I'm gonna use the red crayon here to fill in the rest. All right, so once you have the head colored in, then I'm going to fold it kind of like we did to the body, to a cone shape here. And it's a little bit harder being smaller shape. All right, and so now we've got our head, and so bring the body over, and gonna fold the head like so, to where Beak comes down. Right, and just set the head onto the body there. You may need to use glue or tape to get it to stay there, so that's all right. And then lastly, to give it a little bit more life, we've got some black ribbon that you can either just kind of drape or you can glue and tape on to give the condor some more life to its feathers. So I'm just gonna wrap the ribbon around its wings here. And feel free to cut or tie off or just do whatever you need to get the ribbon here how you like it. So I'm gonna wrap them up there and then give it a cut. And so there we are with your very own California condor. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed and also learned something, and hope to see you again next time.